The town of Fairbrook prided itself on being peaceful, safe, and picturesque. It was the kind of place where doors were left unlocked. The ice cream parlor knew every kid's name, and gossip was passed over fences rather than screens. But beneath its idyllic surface, secrets festered, and one, in particular, was about to explode. Eli Morgan stood in front of the small brick house he hadn't seen in over 6 years. It looked the same: chipped shutters, a porch swing his mother once loved, and a mailbox that leaned just a little too far forward, like it was eavesdropping on the neighborhood. But the warmth he remembered was gone, buried under years of pain, betrayal, and the need for retribution. 6 years ago, Eli had been arrested for arson. He was just 17. The evidence had been damning: gasoline traces on his clothes, a recorded argument with the building's owner, and a witness claiming to have seen him near the structure before the flames took hold. What the jury didn't see was the motive behind the setup. Eli's mother had worked for the building's owner, Councilman Richard Halstead, and when she uncovered evidence of embezzlement from city funds, she was silenced permanently. Her car accident was never questioned, but Eli had always known better. Eli had stumbled onto the same ledger his mother had been keeping, but before he could bring it to light, the building went up in flames. Along with the ledger, all fingers pointed to the angry teen who had threatened Halstead publicly. A closed case, a sealed fate, and 6 years in juvenile detention, then prison. Now 23, Eli had returned, not to clear his name, though he still wanted that, but to dismantle the lives of those who had ruined his. Piece by piece, he checked into the Moonstone Motel under a false name. The room was dim and smelled of mildew, but it gave him the anonymity he needed. He pinned a map of Fairbrook to the wall. Red string connected the faces and names of 5 people. At the center, Richard Halstead. Halstead had risen in the ranks. Now the mayor, still beloved, still untouchable. But Eli knew the cracks in the image. He just needed the right tools to pry them open. He started with the weakest link: Jenna Carlisle, Halstead's secretary. She'd been a high school classmate of Eli's, friendly, bright, a little too fond of being noticed. She also had access to the mayor's schedule and files. Eli watched her for days, learning her patterns: coffee at 9:15, lunch at 12:30, gym after work. One evening, he approached her outside her apartment, carrying a box of old yearbooks. "Jenna," he said, voice low. Familiar. She turned, startled, then squinted. Eli Morgan. Oh my God. I thought you were gone? Yeah, I was. Just got back. I found these old yearbooks and figured someone from the old days might want to laugh. He played it casual. Let nostalgia do the work. Within a week, she was texting him. 2 weeks in, she invited him to her apartment. He found her laptop password written on a sticky note inside her kitchen cabinet. In less than 10 minutes, he had full access to Halstead's private calendar and encrypted messages. One file stood out, FBRK D EXP A17. It referenced a housing development grant that had been marked as approved years ago, but never constructed. The hens, nearly 3 million, were accounted for, but no physical evidence of construction existed. A ghost project, just like his mother had found. That was the connection. That was the thread. But to pull it, he needed help. He reached out to the one person he wasn't sure would answer. Marilyn, once a quiet artist, now a local journalist with a sharp pen and a sharper sense of justice. She had been Eli's best friend, maybe more if he hadn't disappeared. He emailed her the files anonymously with a single line. They burned the truth. Now it's time to burn back. 3 hours later, his burner phone rang. Eli, she said, tell me everything. The rain lashed against the mountain cabin like a battering ram, turning the gravel driveway into a mess of mud and reflections. Elena sat in her car, unmoving, watching the flicker of light through the cabin's window like it was a distant star, and not the epicenter of everything she had been running from. Her grip on the steering wheel tightened. The silence in the car was deceptive. Her heartbeat was loud enough to drown out the storm. She hadn't planned to come here. Not exactly. But when the lies started unraveling at the funeral, little hints in offhand comments, the stiff way certain people avoided her eyes, she knew there was more to uncover. She traced old contacts, resurrected burner profiles, and chased down posts on obscure alumni forums until a single message, coded in nostalgia and guilt, led her to this remote hideaway. She stepped into the storm, the downpour instantly soaking her clothes, but the cold barely registered. As she approached the porch, her eyes locked onto the figure watching her from behind the screened door. Callum. Elena, he said softly, as if tasting the name for the first time in years. He looked the same, almost, but more ragged, like time had been unkind while trying to erase the past. I didn't drive 3 hours to hear you whisper, she snapped. Let me in. Inside, the warmth from the fireplace met her wet skin like a shock. She peeled off her jacket and glanced around. The cabin was rustic, unchanged since their old retreats. Trophies lined one shelf, ghosts of glory days. On the table, a stack of folders lay open, revealing newspaper clippings and handwritten notes. I thought you left this all behind, she said, pointing at them. Callum didn't meet her eyes. I tried. Then why are you still digging? He hesitated, then motioned for her to sit. Because someone was going to find out eventually. And I figured, better it be you than someone who'd sell the story. She sat across from him. The storm outside raged louder, but neither of them moved. They said it was an accident, Elena began. That Mason's car skidded. But you and I both know he never drove without checking the tires. And the toxicology report? Bullshit. He was 6 months sober. Callum rubbed his face. You think someone killed him? I think someone wanted him quiet. He looked haunted, and if you're right, you're putting yourself in danger. Elena leaned in. Maybe I already am. A door creaked somewhere deeper in the cabin. Another figure stepped out. A woman in a hoodie, dripping wet, holding a phone. Elena froze. It was Tasha. She hadn't seen her in nearly 6 years. She had vanished after the scandal, just disappeared like a ghost. And now here she was. We have a problem, Tasha said. Someone else is here. I saw headlights up the ridge. Callum stood up quickly. We need to go. Elena's voice was firm. Not until you tell me everything, all of it. Outside, the storm screamed louder, as if to warn them. Lightning cracked the sky, as if nature itself wanted in on the truth. Elena stood still, trying to process the reappearance of Tasha, another ghost from their buried past, now resurrected in flesh and urgency. The years hadn't dulled the woman's edge. If anything, she looked sharper, coiled like a spring that had been held too long. Callum locked the cabin door behind them. Grab everything, he said. We don't know who's up that ridge, but they weren't trying to be subtle. Tasha moved fast, collecting the folders of evidence and shoving them into a weatherproof duffel. Elena helped, though her mind was racing. Why now? Why were they all here again? Tied together like fate had yanked the cord too tight. They piled into Callum's truck, the engine groaning to life, just as another set of headlights flickered across the tree line behind them. A black SUV, too clean for this terrain, too quiet. No one came up here for sightseeing in a storm. Drive, Elena barked, but Callum was already flooring it, mud spraying behind them. Inside the truck, the silence was electric. Elena turned to Tasha, who sat in the back, clutching the bag like her life depended on it. I thought you vanished. I did, Tasha said, but disappearing didn't make me innocent. I knew what we did. I knew what they did. I couldn't live with it, but I couldn't fix it from the shadows either. Elena frowned. So you were digging too? Tasha nodded. We all were. Separately. Mason was close to blowing it open, but someone stopped him. They made it look like an accident, but I have the footage from the parking garage. A man in a security uniform disabled Mason's brakes. Elena's stomach sank. You saw his face? Tasha nodded slowly. It was Coach Weller. The truck swerved as Callum almost lost control on a bend. You're telling me our old head coach, the man who gave Mason a scholarship, who funded our trips, killed him? He didn't just fund our trips, Tasha said. He funded a cover-up. He was moving money, hiding player injuries, manipulating scholarships, rigging drug tests. Mason found out. So did I. And I think you were meant to. Elena's voice cracked. Why? Because you were clean, Tasha said. You were always the one who played by the rules. The only one who didn't have dirt on her. If anyone could blow it wide open and not be taken down with the rest of us, it's you. Ahead, a set of road flares lit up the path. Oh no, Callum muttered. They're funneling us. The road curved into a one-way bridge over a ravine. The SUV was now behind them. No sirens, no honking, just pressure. As they approached the bridge, another vehicle blocked the other side. Elena's blood turned to ice. They were boxed in. Callum slammed on the brakes. What do we do? Tasha reached into her jacket and pulled out a flash drive. This has everything, she said. Video, financial records, emails. Weller's entire operation. If we die here, this has to survive. She shoved it into Elena's hand. What do you mean if we die? Elena hissed. The SUV doors opened. Men in tactical vests stepped out. Their movements tight and professional. Not cops, not gangsters. Private security, paid loyalty. Callum reached under his seat and produced a flare gun. You've been watching too many movies, Elena said. Actually, he said, cracking a grin. I never stopped. He fired the flare high, and the sky burst red. A signal. Moments later, a siren howled. Not from behind, but above. A drone, then a second one. Suddenly, headlights appeared on the ridge. The other ridge, then more. A second SUV came barreling down the slope and skidded to a halt. This one was familiar. Derek, Elena whispered, recognizing the driver. Derek was Mason's older brother, a war vet turned private investigator. He stepped out, holding a camera, not a weapon. I was hoping you'd light that flare, he said, approaching them. Tasha pinged me your location. I've got 3 backup files, ready to upload the second I press send. The men from the first SUV hesitated. Their authority was no longer absolute. Derek raised his voice. You can try to silence them, but I've got 12 reporters waiting for this file, and they're not tied to any network. Coach Weller stepped out from the second SUV's passenger seat. He was older, grayer, but unmistakable. Elena, he said, his voice velvet wrapped in threat. You don't know what you're walking into. She stepped forward, flare gun in one hand, flash drive in the other. Wrong, she said. I know exactly what you are. A coward who built his empire on broken backs. Weller looked at the cameras, the drones, the flash drives, and smiled. You think this will stop anything? This is just one program. There are dozens more. I'm a symptom, not the disease. Maybe, Elena said, but you're still going down. And with that, Derek hit upload. The flash drive's contents scattered into the digital void, impossible to stop. By morning, the scandal was national news. Weller was arrested. His connections unraveled like yarn. Other coaches, other schools, a nationwide conspiracy decades in the making. Elena, Callum, and Tasha testified. They became unwilling icons, and Mason's name was cleared. The game had always been rigged, but not anymore. Not after this. Not after them.